Hi, I'm Hughes Kettner, and welcome to this in-depth explanation of the new Hughes Kettner Triamp MKIII. Previously, we showed you the Triamp MKIII's basic function and sounds, but there's far more to this amp than that. Dig a little deeper and there's technical tricks and tone shaping options galore that will take your playing and your tone to a whole new level. So let's get straight into it. The Triamp MKIII comes with a dedicated foot switch controller called the TSM432 MIDI board. If you've played the Hughes Kettner Grandmeister or Tubemeisters before, you might recognize it as it's similar to its older cousin, the FSM432. In fact, if you misplaced your TSM432, you can use the FSM432 to select presets on the Triamp MKIII. Here's how the foot switch works. First, connect the MIDI out of the included TSM432 or your favorite MIDI controller to the MIDI in of the Triamp. Though this is a 7-pin interface, you can connect a standard 5-pin MIDI cable. This board allows you to work in two different modes. Preset mode with access to bank up and down selection plus 4 patches per bank, which sums up to a total of 128 amp settings, plus access to the FX loop. Stompbox mode with access to all 6 channels and stomp booster. In both modes, each preset can store the desired channel and your choice of power amp tubes, FX loop, and noise gate settings. The stomp boost targets specific frequency ranges in your tone and kicks them up a notch. Depending on what channel and settings you've got dialed in, the boost will yield an even more assertive, creamier, or punchier tone. The stomp boost is located right after the input jack and before the input stage of the Triamp MKIII, and is tailored to each channel's character, meaning that it works like 6 different intelligent external solid-state stomp boosters. The Smart Loop effects routing circuit offers parallel and serial effects loop modes for patching in external effects devices. Its status, on or off, and parallel or serial is stored within each channel or MIDI preset. The 4-cable method is the correct way to place certain effects before and after the preamps. Let's take a look at connecting stomp pedals with the 4-cable method. So connect cable 1, your guitar lead, into the first pedal, which is often the wah pedal. Now place compressor, phaser, flanger, booster, overdrive, volume pedals next in line and use cable number 2 to run this group of stomp boxes into the front input of the amp, hence into distortion or overdrive. This way you make sure the preamp interacts with those pedals and their respective gain settings. Cable number 3 is connected to the Triamp effects loop send and leads to the input of effects like chorus, delay, and reverb. In most cases, serial is the best selection because these pedals provide the dry sound as well as the effect sound simultaneously. The little sacrifice you'll have to make with this connection is that you will have to run your preamps through these pedals. So, if you do not want to interrupt your preamp signal and keep it completely untarnished, set your effects loop to parallel, but make sure that your pedals offer a wet sound only option. Otherwise, you'll notice a strange out-of-phase sound. For example, if you use the Boss DD7, use the input B instead of A. Okay, it's time to connect a multiple effects processor, for this example a Boss GT10. Connect cable number 1, your guitar lead, into the input of the effects processor. This way you make sure to get access to the internal stomp boxes like wah, compressor, phaser, flanger, booster, overdrive, volume pedal, etc. Now you'll have to place the effects processor external loop right after your choice of pedals, and connect cable number 2 to the send of the GT effects loop, and run this cable right into the front input of the Triamp MKIII. This way I can now manipulate the preamps with those effects. Cable number 3 runs your effects loop send signal back into the GT10 loop return and runs the GT pedals plus MKIII preamp tones through effects like EQ, chorus, delay, reverb, etc. Finally, the left mono output of the multi-effects processor is connected with cable number 4, and the other end runs back to the effects loop return of the Triamp. Now the chain is completed, all 4 cables connected correctly, and you'll have hundreds of options to create all kinds of guitar sounds. When using multi-effects processors, the serial effects loop setting on the Triamp is highly recommended, and with a unit like this you can substitute for a big and expensive rack. So let me give you a few examples of finished tones. We guitar players hate the hiss and noise of high-gain amplifier settings, especially in situations while recording. The ultra-precise IDB Intelligent Dual Breakpoint Noise Gate gauges levels simultaneously at two key points in the signal chain, the input and the preamp's output. The IDB technology then uses these two values to calculate the optimum response and automatically adapts the standard attack and threshold parameters for you. You'll never hear another extraneous noise from your amplifier. On the back of the amp, you'll find the hard soft knob to control the noise gate's response. The further you twist this knob to the right, the softer the noise gate's response. The further you twist the knob to the left, the harder the noise gate kicks in and cuts off signals and unwanted noise. So turned up all the way, it's really useful for stopping high-gain power chords absolutely abruptly. Triamp Mark III is the first Hughes Kettner product to feature the all-new red box with ambience emulation. The original red box has been the industry standard tool for capturing the sound of guitar amps without using microphones for more than 20 years. Redbox puts an end to crosstalk with other instruments and the hassle of experimenting with microphone placement. Connect a standard XLR cable from the Redbox output to either a stage box or directly into the mixing board. Now let's talk about MIDI, or to give it its full name, Musical Instrument Digital Interface. MIDI was initially developed and introduced primarily for musicians in the early 1980s to allow a wide variety of electronic musical instruments, computers, and other related devices to connect and communicate with one another. Use of MIDI by guitarists is no exception to this rule. MIDI has been very significant since this time in allowing guitarists to better control and manipulate their various amps and devices. The Triamp Mark III extols the virtues of MIDI to its absolute upper limits. Triamp Mark III is capable of receiving MIDI commands from the TSM432 MIDI board as well as from any other MIDI device that can send such information. And most significantly, this control extends right through all of the Triamp's vast array of musical goodies. You can even control the intensity of the front panel illumination with MIDI. MIDI-wise, nothing has been left out with this amplifier. So what are MIDI presets good for? In many cases, when switching between sounds, you will want to switch a channel, the boost, noise gate, and the effects program of your external MIDI effects processor simultaneously. This lets you switch, for example, from a clean sound with chorus and reverb to a lead tone with delay, boost, and noise gate, etc. Practical if you only have 2 feet to stomp with. Let's talk about MIDI presets and MIDI setup. Every one of Triamp Mark III's buttons can be remote controlled by MIDI and stored in one of 128 MIDI presets. Each preset can then be recalled at any time using a corresponding program change number. This can be done using any standard MIDI controller or sequencer software. The included TSM432 MIDI board also uses MIDI to switch channels and boost directly in Stompbox mode, or to recall any of the 128 presets, which are stored in 32 banks with 4 presets per bank in preset mode. So, programming the Triamp Mark III couldn't be any easier. If you want to save a configuration of channel, boost on-off, noise gate on-off, effects loop on-off, and your choice of power amp tubes in a preset, simply activate the settings you want using the buttons on the amp. Arm the amp by briefly pressing the MIDI Learn button. Learn will light up, and then press the appropriate switch on your MIDI board that you want to recall this configuration. The Learn light will switch off, which tells you that Triamp MKIII has saved your settings to one of the 128 internal preset slots and assigned it to a program number on your MIDI board. Now, when Triamp MKIII receives a program change message via the selected MIDI channel, Learn flashes briefly and Triamp is configured accordingly. Tube Safety Control adjusts the bias of Triamp MKIII's power tubes to improve the amp's tonal and technical stability and to extend the tube's lives. TSC operates automatically and continuously, so there's nothing for you to do but to enjoy the convenience of the system. Now, TSC works to extend the tube's lives by automatically biasing them, and this also makes it easier to change tubes too. If a tube failure occurs, you can still carry on using the amp without immediately replacing the tube and/or fuse. Just replace them as needed at the next opportunity to do so. Thanks to TSC, you can continue playing the Triamp MKIII for as long as the LED remains illuminated. So, let me finish this video with the crazy feature of the Triamp MKIII, which truly is the very first tube amplifier that can be integrated into your light show. Thank you so much for watching and learning all about the Hughes Kettner Triamp MKIII with me. If you want more information, head over to hughesandkettner.com. I'm Gundi Keller, and see you next time.